Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cyber People podcast. This evening, I'm joined by our illustrious guest, Saaim Khan. Good evening.
How's it going, Will?
It's going very well, mate. How are you?
I'm good. It's a nice little afternoon, seated in a quiet area of the house, and chatting to you. We're recording this on Hump Day, so glad that the week's gone by, and just a couple of more days to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Wednesday is psychologically very important for everyone, isn't it? It's like it gives you that sort of second wind or 18th wind, depending on the kind of week that you've had.
Absolutely. And just 2 more days to go.
So Saaim, I know who you are, but no one, well, probably a lot of people out there listening know who you are as well. But for the 2 or 3 that don't know who you are, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I think it's the other way around. Probably 1 or 2 people know me. Hi, Mom. But besides those people, for everybody else, my name is Saaim Khan. I'm the founder of a company called Jumpstart Security. And prior to starting this little company of mine, I've been in the cybersecurity industry for a little over 10 years, working predominantly as a consultant, helping clients implement security management systems, helping them get certified to ISO, providing strategic advice around cybersecurity, whether it's a cybersecurity strategy or solving a DevOps issue. So that's me. And then somewhere along the pandemic, I realized, I want to start helping small businesses. And then that's what led me to start Jumpstart Security.
What was it that made you decide to do that? What happened? Do you remember the moment itself, that pivotal moment?
I think it's been a series of moments over the last 15, 20 years where I've always been in a consulting role, whether it's technology consulting, management consulting, or cybersecurity consulting. And I've often, worked with, what's defined as mid-market or above, working with companies that can afford to pay $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 a day for consultants. Every time I would be in those engagements, for every 5 big engagements that we would, sign up and do, there'd be this one small business owner who'd reach out and say, hey, I need help with this. And then, we'd give them a proposal with this knowledge at the back of our mind that, they're probably going to say that's too expensive. And that's always stuck with me. How can I help out small businesses? And when, this has happened many, many times over the years, not just in Australia, in my previous lives on different, living and working in different countries. I guess in the pandemic, when, you're sort of home all the time and you kind of have those moments where you're thinking to yourself, I thought, okay, now is a great time to help these small businesses by coming up with a way to offer them all the stuff and help that they need, but minus the expensive price tag that will kind of push them out. So I guess it was around end of last year. I had taken a much needed mental health break and a break from everything. And it was one of those rare moments we were allowed to travel. So we traveled up to Byron Bay, and sitting in Byron Bay, I thought, this is something I want to do. And when I came back at the start of this year, started Jumpstart Security to help specifically small and micro businesses.
Well, I'm sure you're not the first man to have an epiphany while sitting on a beautiful beach, and you'll probably not be the last. That's a very charming story. And it's very interesting to hear those moments, those sort of key moments that send us down one path or another. So today we're going to talk about 3 very interesting topics. We're going to talk about what is just enough security. And secondly, we're going to talk about paralysis by compliance. I just had a bit of facial paralysis there for a second. Paralysis by compliance. And lastly, we're going to talk about what exactly is third-party risk and how do we tackle it.
Okay.
So let's start with that first one. What is just enough security, Saaim Khan?
Just enough security is a deceptively complex. Actually, no, I'm not. I'll quit the BS and the marketing stuff, right? Look, just enough security is having enough of controls in place to make sure that your information, your people, and your systems are safe from any kind of threat. Now, I know it's such a vague statement because just enough security varies from from company to company, but therein lies something that should be considered. You don't need to over engineer something. Sometimes the best process is an air gapped computer, having a computer that's not connected to any networks. Sometimes the best solution is to go to, like I keep one of these with me all the time. It's a little notebook with all my notes in it, right? This is better than secure notes and, embracing the digital change and what have you. So just enough security is based on understanding what am I protecting and what's the best way to protect it and then just doing it. So, saying, and that kind of leads into the second thing we're talking about, paralysis by compliance. Um, but before we get into that, businesses should be able to at least first understand, okay, what do I use and what do I store and who are the people that use my systems. It's not a difficult question, it's just a question that requires you to think a little bit. So a small law firm, their biggest information that they have to protect are all the matter and case files that they have. And the people that they have to protect are the lawyers that use those systems and the back office that supports those lawyers and the clients that upload that information, right? How can they protect it? If they have a centralized system, how are they adding information into that system? Is it being, brought in from someplace else? How are they communicating? Are they, sending out email? Are they sending out emails with sensitive information, or are they forcing their staff and their clients to, upload everything in a secure location? Those are the kind of questions you have to ask, and that's just enough security. You don't have to comply with NIST, or you don't have to comply with ISO 27001, or any of the standards, right? Any of those acronyms which become a bane of your existence if you get caught up in that compliance or certification situation. So that's, in my opinion, what just enough security is.
Okay, okay. And when you speak to small businesses and you ask them that question, the question that you begun your explanation with, how many of them know straight away what the answer is?
Almost all of them.
Okay, so most people
they have a good idea. Your job in that consulting capacity is to ask them those questions which allow them to extrapolate further than they already have.
Right.
We'll take the same example of a law firm, right? Let's say you were the principal of the law firm and we were having the conversation and we'd gotten just to where we are right now. The next question I'd ask you is, oh, by the way, how do you accept payments? And if you came back and said, oh yeah, we allow customers to pay by credit card, okay, how do they pay? Do they pay online? Do you have an FPOS machine which you enter their information over the phone? Then we start getting into the detail of it, right? And the reason why you need to do this is, just to make sure that you've got everything covered. So just enough is just enough security to cover everything that you do.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, in my experience, most of the time when I speak to customers or I speak to prospects or whoever I'm talking to about the subject, they do have a clear idea of what it is that they need to protect. It's not like, I don't know, right? I don't want to get
Yeah.
hacked. I mean, I think that's a bit of a misnomer. Like, people don't get nearly as much credit as they deserve when it comes to being aware. So, yeah, people do have an idea of what they need to protect.
I guess if they didn't, they wouldn't be talking to you. They wouldn't have initiated that conversation in the first place. It's an indication that they've given it some thought. They've identified what they see as the risks and are coming to you to say, well, look, how do we mitigate these? And I would imagine also that there are probably certain risks that they haven't considered, like the credit card one, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll give you an example of a call that I had today with someone, and they have compliance requirements for PCI. Otherwise, their merchant and banking partner is not going to let them use their services. That's why they
What is PCI, Saaim? Sorry to interrupt. What is PCI for those that? What does PCI mean for those that are listening who aren't familiar with that abbreviation? Acronym,
so PCI
I should say.
Stands for the payment card industry, and it's a joint effort by all of the major credit card brands: Visa, Mastercard, Amex, JCB, etc. And Specifically, what I'm referring to here is called the DSS, the Digital Security Standard. So if you are
Okay.
an organization that accepts credit card payments, you have to comply with PCI DSS standards, and there are different standards based on your situation. Like, you could be someone that uses PayPal and Shopify to power your store. In that case, you don't really have a lot of obligations because you kind of outsource that to somebody else. Or if
Right.
you have your own e-commerce website, or if you have your own payment processing service that you use through one of the banks or whatever, then you would be expected to fulfill more obligations. Um, so that's what PCI is. The question that we were asked, like, so when you said about identifying risks that they didn't think about, we were talking about how their system stores credit cards, and to a large extent they didn't, because they were using a third-party system to manage that entire payment process outside of their app. But then one of the developers chimed in, well, we thought about making it easy for customers to know which card they've paid with. So we actually store the last four digits of their card, and show it on our portal. And to which, that actually doesn't violate any PCI obligations, because there's the PCI standard actually has a very specific definition of what card data means. But the risk that they hadn't considered is, what if someone was able to access this platform that we were talking about, capture that information, and actually start sending off phishing emails saying your card ending in these last four digits could be the subject of has been a subject of a financial fraud, and getting someone to log into a fake bank account or something. So it could be used for a phishing attack. That's a risk that they didn't consider. That's the value that a consultant would bring into the table, just bringing an outside perspective. But
Right.
apart from that one particular risk, they actually had everything down pat. They knew exactly the information they had to protect. They had all the mechanisms and controls in place to satisfy actually a level much more than what they were expected to do. So people need to be given more credit. Like, people do think these things through.
Have you noticed in recent times? I mean, one of the things I've noticed, and maybe it's because I'm more involved in this field myself professionally now, that I start to I have a sort of different cybersecurity filter on. But it seems to me like, especially during COVID, your average Joe Smith in the street knows a lot more about cybersecurity than before, because there's such a prevalence of incidents, publicized incidents with big enterprises. Channel 9, for example, not a day goes by where there isn't some kind of story of ransomware or something like that on the news. Has this contributed to an overall uplift of general awareness,
Definitely.
from a small business perspective?
Definitely, it has. And what it's also done is, it's also firmly blurred the line between personal digital security and corporate digital security. So, people are working, like you and we're working out of our homes right now. And, we have sensitive information that probably be lying around as as we're telling our kids not to, as we're feeding our kids lunch or dinner, or, I mean, half of my notebook's filled with the stuff I need to do for my kids' reading eggs and his online school assignments, which I need to do. And on the other side it says cybersecurity strategy for customer X. So it's almost like those two worlds have collided. As a result, people are generally more aware, because those who are getting security awareness training from their employers are starting to apply those in their personal lives as well. And this is a very often used tactic in security awareness, where you kind of build a buy-in by saying, hey, this applies to you in your personal life. People are more aware. People are also pragmatic now. I mean, people would think twice before checking out sensitive information in their recycle bin. People are more concerned about online privacy, safeguarding their personal information, not posting a lot of stuff on social media, not using their social media logins to websites everywhere, keeping registering with an account compromise service like haveibeenpwned.com. People generally have improved awareness, and so much in the last 24 months.
Absolutely. I've recently started internet dating, and a lot of people use fake names. I guess that's also a sign of increased awareness.
Yeah, well, I don't know how to comment on that. That's an area I'm completely unaware of. So
Okay.
I wouldn't know if that's the norm.
So, just going back to what you said about payments and so forth, from a cybersecurity perspective, and talking about just enough security, and talking about the way in which businesses take payments, and how with certain payment facilities like Stripe, for example, that those sorts of things are outsourced. From a cybersecurity subject matter expert perspective, is it better for businesses to try to take as many payments as possible via like cryptocurrency as opposed to the more standard currencies, or does it not really matter? Like, are cryptocurrencies more secure for payments from a cybersecurity perspective?
Not really. I mean, because it's a means of payment. You still haven't defined how you're going to take the payment. I mean, if you've got a leaky wallet that you're using to record payments in, that's not really secure.
Right.
Also, how are you processing the payments yourself? Are you using a payment processor? Those things matter. So I think the decision to move to cryptocurrencies as a form of payment comes less from a security perspective, but comes more from a convenience perspective and more from a transparency perspective. Because cryptocurrency payments are decentralized. You can see, who's made, which wallets have made payments to which wallets. So I don't think people are necessarily more secure by offering crypto based payments. It's just another means. It's like saying we now support Apple Pay, Google Pay, credit card payments, PayPal, and swipe to pay, whatever payment mechanism have you. But yeah, I mean, I don't think so.
Got it.
And look, I mean, thank you very much for calling me a cybersecurity domain expert. I'm not really an expert. I just happen to work in this field for a while, so I know a thing or two. That's all.
Modesty is such an attractive trait. You're being very modest. You're a cybersecurity Swiss Army knife. When you were explaining what you did, it seemed like you covered all of the areas: compliance, architecture, strategy, engineering. You're a very modest fellow, Saaim Khan. So if you're a small business person listening right now, what would your advice be to that person if they're thinking, I haven't really, I've got cybersecurity on my agenda, it's on my list of things to do, I don't really know where to start, what's important, what's not. What advice would you give to those people listening right now who want to get started?
Well, my first question that I would ask is, what kind of platform do you use? Do you use Microsoft? Do you use Google? Do you not use anything? Do you use a personal Gmail account? Because since everything is digital, it's important to know what platform you're using for collaboration and communication. That would be my first question. The second question is, do you have a website? If you do, where is it hosted? How is it hosted? Is it secure? And security doesn't mean that you have oodles of technology stacked on top of it. It's just a few things. Have you configured your email properly? That's even regardless of any, it doesn't matter if you use whatever email service. One of the key things right now is, when you talk about ransomware, when we talk about business email compromise, it all originates from email. So there are some really simple things that businesses can do to at least secure that impersonation aspect of it. So, for example, by just Googling this, email, just search for email configuration issues, or search for DMARC record generator. These are simple controls that you can enable yourself, or you can get your IT provider or someone whoever set up your website could do this for you. Set up a DMARC record, set up a SPF record, and set up a DKIM record. I know these might sound alien, but these are 3 domain level configurations for email, which greatly reduce the likelihood of someone using your email domain. So let's say if it was weatherillassociates.com.au, it reduces the likelihood of someone using that domain to spoof and impersonate you, will, and send an email on your behalf. At least that way you can reduce that risk, at least from an impersonation perspective. Enable SSL on your website, and try using a service like Cloudflare. It's free, and you can attach it on top of your website. It gives you that base level of security. There's so many security tools out there which are available for free, and thanks to everyone adopting a simple user experience in their approach, it's not that hard to set up. A lot of the advice that we give within Jumpstart is also this. I mean, we're not telling people to set up data classification schemes or data governance models. We're just saying implement DMARC, DKIM, SPF, implement SSL, implement a WAF, implement some basic antivirus, register on Have I Been Pwned. And these are simple things that I would recommend to any small business or any business owner or anyone listening, that you should just, like, this is the base level of things that you should do. And by the way, all of these things take about 15 minutes to do.
Okay.
All of these together.
Okay, so you can achieve a pretty decent level of cybersecurity for your small business for free in a few hours one afternoon. Not even that.
Make a cup of tea, sit down, do these things one after the other, and you'll at least you've got some level of baseline. These are all preventative controls, right? The next step is having detective and then proactive controls. Got it.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier was, and I get the feeling that, a lot of cybersecurity, like a lot of technical topics, it's very easy to kind of go down the rabbit hole, get lost in jargon, get super techie. And when you're talking to business people who are not technically minded, shall we say, perhaps, or just not passionate about technology in the way others are. If you start talking about things like frameworks, for example, NIST, their eyes are going to glaze over and they're going to totally zone out, and you're going to lose them, right? You're going to lose the essence of the business outcome that they're looking for. So that leads us probably onto the next topic of paralysis. I don't know why I struggled to say that. Paralysis by compliance.
All right. So look, I kind of disagree. People, when we say, I'm not technically minded, I'm a business person, you're kind of disparaging yourself. I mean, and if a consultant or someone who is technical, so to speak, can't explain it to you in the base terms, then that's not good either. I mean, it's a serious, I guess, disservice to actually talk down to people using jargon, and I think that's pretty offensive in the sense that if as a consultant I'm not able to explain a concept to you in the simplest of terms, that means I don't understand it myself. It's kind of like the paper napkin test. If I can't draw it on a paper napkin, that means I don't know it myself.
That's a good test, actually.
I mean, what is the point of hiring external advisory if they're only going to confuse you? That's my belief. And secondly, coming back to this, right? When we're talking about compliance is not complex. It is just onerous because it is exhaustive. But if you have a clearly defined reason for why you have to go down that onerous or exhausting path, it's just a slog you have to do. It's kind of like nobody likes going to the gym, and anyone who says they love going to the gym is lying to you, right? But those who
they like it afterwards. They like it afterwards when they're all full of endorphins.
Exactly, but the fact is that they have the foresight to slog it through. They have the foresight for that endorphin release, the health benefits, etc., to slog through the the effort of cardio or weights or whatever to reach that goal. Yes, it's not enjoyable. Nobody enjoys lifting weights. Nobody enjoys, getting ragged running 5Ks, but they do it because it gets them to a certain state where they're in a beneficial position. That's the same thing with compliance. Compliance is not supposed to be fun. I mean, people enjoy doing it. That's different. But compliance is not supposed to be an exercise which is supposed to be paralyzing. It should be a liberating exercise, but yes, it is an onerous path to take. So let's talk about ISO or NIST or pick a standard. Doesn't really matter.
Let's talk about ISO, because that's such a hot topic at the moment, right? Like,
Sure.
you're so busy helping companies get to that ISO 27K certification at the moment. Every man and his dog seems to want ISO 27K certification. So let's talk about that one. I think probably that one gets the
Sure.
most press.
Well, okay. Whilst we do that, another challenge I have to solve is also get my charger. Otherwise, this laptop will die. So,
Okay. Excellent.
1 second.
No worries.
Let me just grab the.
Impressive multitasking.
Well, the last thing I'd want to do to you, Will, is kind of ghost you in the middle of this recording.
I could pretend that we've been hacked. Our network's been hacked. We've been channel 9'd.
Well, what kind of credence would it lend your guest if they managed to get hacked out of their own podcast recording? So,
Wow. The enemy is at the gates. That's what we would have to conclude. You're looking for your charger. I'm polishing my glasses.
all right, now
There
we're
we
good to go. We're good to
Awesome.
go. This is as
Panic over.
Yeah,
Panic
this is-
over, ladies and gentlemen.
this is as real as working from home.
Love it.
Yeah, and I got to change my position because this is where the PowerPoint is. You can now see other parts of the house, and
I
I
can.
have that annoying light free as well now. So
It looks like you just had an amazing idea.
yes, there we go. Kids' lunches still need to be cleaned,
Fantastic.
so, yeah, so
Fantastic.
I'll do I'm sitting at the bar casually scene. There you go.
Okay, wonderful.
Look, with ISO, it's becoming a path a lot of organizations are taking, predominantly because it's the most widely recognized in Australia, Asia, North America. North Americans do things slightly differently, as we all know. But
No comment.
but like within European environments as well. So ISO 27001 is a good starting point for compliance. And by the way, it doesn't make you infinitely secure. It's actually a baseline security standard. It's the bare minimum that an enterprise should be doing from a security management perspective. A lot of people explain ISO in different ways. This is how I explain it. As long as you do 5 things, you should be compliant. You have your management actually gives a crap about security, so they ask questions about what's happening in security, and they do it in a smart way. So specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-driven, whatever, time-bound. You have discussions about security impact at your operational level, so all of your departmental heads or team leads talk about it. You actually pick someone in the company to be an independent assessor of if you're doing your job, and you've got some security controls in place. And finally, to manage all of this, you've actually maintained a paper trail. So you've got a document which outlines the process. And it doesn't have to be a robust or complex document. It could just be a checklist.
A napkin.
It could be a napkin. I mean, one thing which I actually clash with a lot of other consultants and sometimes even auditors on is the policies that I write for my clients. I don't write long policies. I write bullet point policies. Our policy is access management. Our policy is everyone will have a named account. The named account will be provisioned according to our user provisioning and deprovisioning process, and it will be reviewed every 3 months to see if that person still needs that account for that access. And if anything changes, this list will be the first to be reviewed if we have an incident. Something to that effect, right?
Right.
It doesn't have oodles and oodles of text about what access management is and blah, 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 and things all like that. So I digress. Coming back to the question about paralysis, the reason why I think people kind of get stuck or get scared of compliance is because, they think it's this big complex beast. It's not. ISO, the specific example we're talking about, it says implement these 114 things, and they sound like a lot, but like, for example, of the 114, 6 are all around one thing, which is when you hire people, do you do a background check? Yes. Okay, so that's 5 out of 114 done. So they're not really that many. Probably at a broad stroke, they're probably about like 30, 40 things you have to do. And most organizations do it. I mean, like, would anyone hire someone without doing a background check and checking their visa entitlements? Probably not. They'd at least do, verbal or phone references on saying, hey, we're about to hire, like, for example, and look, the industry that you work in, you're very familiar with this process. I mean, can you think of a single client that you've served that hasn't done background checks?
No.
So, I mean,
not at all.
Congratulations. All of your clients, if they ever went down ISO, they actually comply with one of the 14 domains of ISO. So, yay, right?
Oh, excellent. Low-hanging fruit.
Exactly. It is low-hanging fruit. And then the other things are all about context. One of the big things which people forget in ISO is literally the first thing that the standard starts off with, right? So it's basically, if you read it, it's got 10 sections and then a list of 114 things. Everyone skips the 10 sections because it's a lot of text, and who wants to read a boring PDF or a document with lots of text? Let's just go straight to the meaty part, which is the list. But fact is, if you don't conform with the text before, that's an automatic fail. I mean, I gave an example of this to someone the other day. It's like sitting for your driver knowledge test and passing everything except the questions about school zones. You're going to fail your DKT. So think of those, the first 10 paragraphs as the questions around the school zones, right?
Right.
Oh, by the way, of those 10 paragraphs, the first 3 are just introductory stuff. This is ISO is great, blah, blah, blah. Paragraph 4 onwards is where the meaty stuff begins. So in paragraph 4, the first thing that the ISO standard starts with is context. What does your business do? I mean, a lot of businesses I work with are SaaS providers. So they're either in Azure or Google or AWS. Half of the physical security controls that ISO states you need to have don't even apply to them because they're a completely online business. Some of my clients don't even have an office. They've got a virtual address that they pay a serviced office company for, right? They don't have a physical space. Like almost all of the physical security controls don't apply to them. They outsource half of their stuff to a managed IT provider, or they've got shared services from a recruiting company or something along those lines. So it's about context. What's the context of the organization? Then you kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, so is the management team on board? Do they give a crap about security? Do the operational leaders give a crap about security? How do they manage it? What do they do? So it's not hard. It's just, tell me this.
It's just onerous.
It's just onerous, yeah. But one of the things which I am kind of perplexed as to this type of conversation that we're having, I have yet to see. And by the way, if there are conversations about it, then I'm happy to be told I'm wrong. People don't have this level of conversations with people. They're just talking high. They're just talking about a high level of we'll do a strategic security initiative to meet your security compliance needs. I mean, sorry, what the heck does that even mean? Yeah.
Just marketing puffery, blah blah. Yeah. It's just sort of
and look, that's
a fugazi.
Look, that's a pet peeve of mine. Can we stop selling cybersecurity like snake oil, please? It's not a complex thing. Cybersecurity, you know what? It's not even cybersecurity. Like I'm actively making an effort now to actually stop talking about it as cyber or information security. It's digital risk. That's all that it is. That's what I do. Like you called me a Swiss Army knife before. It's actually the reason why I'm in that position is because I don't look at it as cybersecurity. I look at it as digital risk. It's just risk in the digital world. What are the concerns? And that's what we are becoming. That's what this consulting industry is going to move towards, where we manage digital risk. And as cool as that sounds, I can't really think of another phrase to describe it.
Saaim, don't deprive us of our buzzwords, man. We need our buzzwords. Don't take those away.
No,
please.
But why? Like, why do we have to make everything a buzzword? Like, for example, one of the things, running a small company, I've been exposed to the startup community or the startup people. Man, if you think cybersecurity has got buzzwords, wait till you join the startup community.
Everyone's got buzzwords because I guess people want to create a buzz and they want to create a mystique. and they want to position. I think it's just marketing. It's just positioning it in a certain way, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people in the cybersecurity business, they're making it is a business, right? They're positioning it as a service that they're trying to sell. So I suppose if there's a certain amount of mystique about it, your average businessman, perhaps in the street, who doesn't know much about it, is going to want to engage the person who appears to know a lot about it by using these kinds of words. Perhaps, I don't know, like window dressing, maybe.
Look,
to attract customers into the shop.
I want to challenge that because, and look, I'm going to speak as plainly and as crudely as possible. And if it
please do, we love that on the show.
And if it goes on an explicit tangent, I apologize in advance. But my question is, why the fuck do we have to make things mysterious? Why can't we speak plainly? I mean, when I talk to customers or when I talk to prospects, I'm like, look, why do you want to get this certification, or why do you want to improve security? And if they can give me an honest answer saying, hey, look, I want to close more business. If I have an ISO certification attached to my company, I will automatically be in the top 5% of my competitors. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Let me help you do that. They don't talk about, oh, we do it because it's we want to be in the cutting edge niche. Nah, I want to make more money, and getting an ISO cert is going to help me make more money. My business model, when we talk about the consulting side of things, my consulting model is quite simple. You hire me to do an outcome. I will charge you a fixed fee, which gives me commercial coverage to be able to achieve that outcome for you. And that's basically the fundamentals of how we work. I'm not going to give you some snake oil bullshit about I'm going to do X and Y and Z. You want to get this done? I'll help you get this done. And in exchange for my effort, because I may have to put a little bit of effort sometimes and a lot of effort sometimes, I'm going to charge you this. The Jumpstart Security platform is the same thing. We give you these things which we know from experience are going to give you X. And this is what you get. There's nothing else. We're not promising you a Rolls Royce. We're not promising you a magical uplift in security. The security godmother is not going to come and magically bestow upon you, flowers and laurels of cybersecurity greatness. It's a simple platform. It does 5 things and it does those things, and we charge you anywhere between $50 to $300 a month for it. That's the model. It's that simple. We don't need marketing gizmos and videos about it. We don't want to make, a lot of false promises. It's literally what it says on the tin. Why can't security be like this?
I think it can, and I think there are a lot of people out there who do appreciate the no BS approach, because it can be quite overwhelming, I suppose, if you're approaching it for the first time and you don't know where to start. So the no BS approach, I think, is definitely the way to go. And I know a lot of companies out there that are looking for those sorts of people. People who are just going to come in and tell it like it is, and drive business outcomes. Demystify it, simplify it. The KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid. But by the way, you did actually give me a great idea for a new startup company name, Cybersecurity Godmother. I think that's a great one. I think that could really kill it. Right, we don't have much time, so let's move on to the last topic, which is, what is third-party risk and how do we tackle it?
Look, third-party risk is, in my opinion, the average company now uses 30-odd SaaS platforms, and it's just about knowing, what's your exposure like. So I mean, that's one example. Classically, it was companies had suppliers were given access to systems, and suppliers themselves were not diligent in that access. I mean, I feel bad. I think a reindeer is slaughtered every time someone mentions the Target third-party attack, because come on. Target's now moved to an online model in our country. Give those guys a rest. But it's basically due diligence on your third parties, on your suppliers, on your customers. People forget customers. People automatically assume third party is suppliers, but there's also customers. It's just about knowing. So here's the paper napkin test, right? Third party risk management is knowing which one of your stakeholders can potentially screw you over. That's third party risk management, and then doing something about it. Let's break that down into a little bit more detail. You typically have 3 to 4 different kinds of third parties. You've got customers, big obvious. You've got suppliers, you've got regulators, and you've got investors. These are the 4 or 5 broad categories. How do you manage risk with each of them? Specifically for suppliers, which is quite often the focus of TPRM, third party risk management. Basically, the way this works is you would have to first understand what kind of suppliers do we have, sort them out into suppliers that have access to your systems and data and suppliers that don't, suppliers that work in your systems and suppliers that don't, and then basically make sure that you've got necessary controls in place. For everyone that's working within your data and systems, treat them like you would an employee in sense of expecting them to uphold a certain level of security controls or proving that they do. When it comes to customers, one of the biggest things that SaaS customers or customers that have platforms or provide systems that their customers access is, have you educated your customer enough to not create an inadvertent security risk within the platform that you give them? So it's about customer education as well. It's about making sure that your customers don't get breached and you then get breached by example, and having protections in that place. Keeping regulators and contractual obligations satisfied as well. So if you're in a regulated industry, you kind of know you need to do certain things. If you have contractual obligations, you kind of at least have made a list that I've promised my customers and everyone I've signed a contract with that I will do these 10 things. How am I tracking against those? And if you have investors, the same courtesy extends to them. That, I feel, is a very high level, but I guess a comprehensive view of what third-party risk management means to me, at least, and that's how I approach it when I'm dealing with customers.
Okay. So you have to think about. You can't just think about cybersecurity in terms of protecting your own 4 walls. You have to think about it a lot more inclusively than that.
Correct.
And so therefore you have to. How do you do that though? So is that just about auditing your third parties and educating them, training them?
I think we're jumping the gun to, let's fix this problem right away. Let's take one step back, right? So I would first say, who are the different stakeholders that I have? So who are my suppliers? Do I have a list of them? And what kind of things do they supply me? So I would literally start off with a table, put their name, what do they give me? Do they have access to my systems, to my data? That's where I would start. Same thing with customers, same thing with regulators and whatever. Make a list of everyone. From there, I then think about, okay, what do I need to do what could go wrong with this? So let's say supplier X is, I have given them access to my systems, I have given them access to my data, and do I really know how they vet their staff? I mean, one thing is to have a confidentiality agreement in place. That's fine. But, do I really know, how much do I know about my supplier? How much do I know about the way that they do things? And then first trying to build an understanding of that. And then, look, you could probably search for CCA vendor assessment template, and you could get things you can send off to your suppliers. But why are you doing that? They'll fill it out, send it back to you. But then what you've done is you've made someone spend 2 hours filling out a painful Excel file, and now you need to spend 5 hours reading the same filled out Excel file and make sense of it. So yeah. let's kind of avoid that kind of pain, and first go back and think about, well, what do I need to know about them? What assurance do I need that, okay, I'm comfortable giving them access? So do they follow the same security processes that I would? Oh, they don't. Okay, well then they need to, otherwise I can't work with them. With my customers, how can so I know it's crude, but going back and answering the question, how can any of my stakeholders screw me over? And having controls in place to prevent that likelihood from occurring.
Is this the whole concept of zero trust?
Zero trust is slightly different. Zero trust is a philosophy. If anyone tries to sell you a zero trust solution, it's probably someone just spending a bit of more time than you have and thinking it through and saying, hey, you can achieve this through this means. But zero trust is not the same. Zero trust is an attempt to solve part of the problem, which is a zero trust architecture is based on the principle of nothing is trusted. So everything has to verify and prove and identify itself before it's given access every single time. There are no trusted zones. So
Right.
where previously in networks you had public network, DMZ, semi-trusted, trusted, critically trusted environment. Zero Trust says that doesn't exist anymore. There's no perimeter. Every single device, every single user that uses the device, all of the data that these devices and users are accessing, everything has to be proven before it's given access to. That's the fundamental concept of Zero Trust. And then a lot of it, unfortunately, gets kind of bogged down into, so it's a network access thing. It's not just a network access thing. It's whatever is your context. So Zero Trust is a way to deal with it, for sure, but it's not the be-all, end-all for supplier management. I mean, supplier risk extends beyond digital access as well, right? Supplier risk and third-party risk as well. I mean, how do you think you could prevent customers from giving everyone in their company admin access to your platform, the ones that you sell them? How do you think Zero Trust is going to solve that? It's not. It's an education piece. You got to tell customers saying, hey, when you create accounts, don't give everyone admin privileges, otherwise people will run amok and start deleting and modifying stuff. But you give your users access to X level of privileges. So not Zero Trust is a great approach, but it's not the be all end all for solving this problem.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Well, look, it's I once again I've totally failed to do a podcast, a concise podcast. I have been advised that I should really be trying to sort of keep these short and sweet, half an hour, but there's always so much to talk about, and it's always a pleasure to discuss these topics with someone like you who just makes it all very simple. And you've got such a candid, down-to-earth, nuts and bolts approach that demystifies it and really breaks it down to its bare essentials. And I think that's very, very important, I think, especially if you're running a business, whether it's a small business or a massive enterprise, you really do need to look at it this way. So it is getting dark. We're starting to look like a couple of expert witnesses in a Mafia Netflix series. So Saaim Khan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you for hours and almost have. So I hope you come back again sometime. And I wish you a very happy rest of the lockdown. And hopefully we'll be able to meet in person in October, just around the corner.
Absolutely. Look, thanks for having me on. Would love to look. As you can see, I'm passionate. I love to rant. So give me a soapbox. I'm happy to rant.
Well, actually, I could listen to you rant all day, and I'm sure there are lots of people out there that want to contact you directly for some more ranting. How do people get hold of you? How do people find you? Tell us where they can reach you.
Sure. Look, it says on the tin, it's jumpstart.security. So jumpstart one word, security one word. It's not .com, or so jumpstart.security is the address of our website. If you want to get in touch with me, my email address is just my first name, Saaim@jumpstart.security. We're connected.
How do you spell Saaim?
SAAIM. So SAAIM @jumpstart.security. Get in touch. You can get in touch via the website. You have my contact details when you publish this. Feel free to tag me or put my contact details. Happy to answer questions, rant, have a virtual coffee. I mean, whatever.
Awesome.
In this collective lockdown, we're all lonely. Everybody could use some company.
Absolutely. Reach out to Saaim, ladies and gentlemen. It's well worth it. Thank you very much, Saaim. You have a lovely evening.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Cheers, Will. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye, mate.